Honourable Minister.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, I present the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022.
Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act 2000.
Minister for Transport and Civil Aviation.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. I ask leave of the Parliament to move the second reading forthwith.
Is the leave granted? Mr. Minister.
Assistant Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, the proposed bill is to include new provisions pertaining to the absence, registration, or resignation, vacation of the office by directors, and the appointment of the Managing Director and the appointment of the Acting Managing Director of the Papua New Guinea Air Service Limited and National Airport Corporation Limited boards respectively. The Papua New Guinea Air Service Limited and National Airport Corporation Limited are entities of the state established under the Act and incorporated under the Company Act 1997 respectively. The government must make certain there are appropriate mechanisms in place to ensure entities within the civil aviation system remain compliant with aviation safety and security standards. Assistant Speaker, I commend the bill to the Parliament.
The question is the question be put. Oh, sorry. Deputy Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, me like move was Parliament take note of the paper.
Just debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. First of all, from the opposition, people like supporting this bill or this whatever come to. So there's certain questions that need to be clarified first before people can be satisfied or how much supporting this bill. First of all, Mr. Speaker, the minister has basically asked for Parliament to move now you accepting this and by come up law appointment law chairman now board members law NAC. Especially the MD, appointment of the MD. You may already say boards got power. Now this bill, you may rouse him over the power blow board, now you may put him go underneath the one plamantaso. And that is the minister. We are now setting a very dangerous precedent, Mr. Speaker. Politicians now, you may come inside law, operation law board members. Now the concern here, Mr. Speaker, is that the chairman is appointed by the board sit down on meeting or appoint him chairman. Now talks away go minister now by talks out cabinet, or some through the prime minister, or some Mr. Chairman now is being appointed. Now you may deal with the chairman. Now you may now go down and deal one time all board members too. The directors. The directors now have to report to the minister, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, talking minister or seek on attending meeting or something or must go to minister. What is the role of the chairman of the board, Mr. Speaker? Chairman, now you may lose powerless because everybody in the board reports direct to the minister. Now, responsibility of the board is now taken away from the chairman. Or addition, or like walk him, or go direct to minister. And where is the board here? Now, plus something, Mr. Speaker, Assistant Speaker, is that now Taso, Minister talk, NAC was created through a Companies Act. And if NAC was created and registered as a company under the Companies Act, hence the appointment of the MD is by the board, not the public service. You must respect him this. That's right. There is Company Act that gives power for the creation of NAC. And we have set a dangerous trend here in this house, all members of parliament, that we must respect the operation of NAC under the Companies Act. Now suppose you may like sending him NAC now. First of all, you may must rouse him all underneath the Company Act. Na kisimo kamana need to watch full eyes blow government. That amendment must be done first. You may not can shortcut na come na walk him na something first. We must respect processes. Parliament is not here to jump over and disrespectfully go walk over our citizens. The laws are created by this parliament to be respected by this parliament. Also, na this taso mipla opposition mipla believe also it is a dangerous trend. We're setting a wrong precedents, and we must respect the precedents, the process of appointment na all board members. No good you may walk in this board now, and we can influence other boards as well, in other organizations as well. Also, I'm little talk mipla the opposition. Also, you mean respecting process, now especially NAC is created under the Companies Act. That must be observed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, can you explain?
Thank you,
the bill?
Assistant Speaker. Me just like placing some correction that's all here in relation to the Deputy Opposition Leader speaking. Me not think me clear too much long process procedure na the Act. The chairman is not appointed by the board at the current setup right now. The current law, NEC appoints the board. NEC also appoints the chairman. So, totally no correct to us in terms of process procedures. What we're having to do here in this relation, if you were able to look at the Act clearly, it no give absolute power. When we need to walk within or confinement, lo disla. Now, if there's those clauses that are stipulated within the amendment, I work outside of, then I'm illegal. So, absolute power also you talk. And we just give the sole sample kind jurisdiction long minister to intervene at a time that now public safety and security is at risk. And that's more important than anything else right now. So me play walk in this law, give absolute power. You may walk him where minister now he must walk within the confinement legislative clause, and me not walk about other side long end. Clear? And he's binded by those clauses only. So me just like reassure him to solve opposition or some through you speaker that got big worry too much, make me worry long end. Absolute power. Clear? Kind something also where we need to worry long end. It's just a minor amendments to give jurisdictions to the minister to enable to address an ongoing situation that could be detrimental to this country. Na tason, Lodisla. Inogat. Time minister like executive duty belongen, and we must walk within the confinement Lodisla new play. I mean, walk about our side. Something that I've been following ever since me minister na mikam. I work within the confinement Lodisla law. Na tapos mi play nol kita ikila, emol sem law ito kal sem. Minister ino ka right igolong MD. Law ito kal sem. Board I working decision lo MD. Hire and fire. Okay? All right? But what happens when the board is now compromised? Yes, me use him company act pinis. Or some shareholder, 70% shareholder. Me write him pass pinis, he go to board, na me talk him all, please, addressing this issue. You may got issue long. A person in a position of MD is not a fit and proper person. Na me got issue to lo court order to, where only stay him NEC decision long install him new board. So, emerald situation is stop also. Okay? You cannot rectify the situation right now with the current circumstance or the current law. This law allow him, minister to come inside. I mean, no different, you go along with not statutory bodies, law government. Not different. One kind. NEC mark him MD. NEC mark him board. No difference. So all we're trying to do now, is bring him back into line. One and more important something where jurisdiction blow minister and me, he can act accordingly to fix the situation instead of getting labeled in the public and me no walk belong in. But public kill also jurisdiction is stopped, the minister must work within the confinement law. So I'm legally explanation, so legally correction, that's all. Na like email kita loporet, please. This law I'm easy. Minister by just work within the confinement of the law, and that's it, and execute his duty accordingly, as expected by the nation and everybody in this house. Thank you.
Question, the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Question is that the bill now be read the second time. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Clerk.
Second reading. A bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act 2000.
Mr. Minister.
Assistant Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Is the leave granted? Minister.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a third time.
Governor Morobe.
Mila support him this bill. Minister, I present him now. But me also mindful of the talk law opposition he come on this floor. There's a big controversy established in the country, Mr. Minister, which you're aware and that this nation is aware. Some of the purported behavior of managing director, he make him na plan the flight he go long not up or he go long Kiunga or he suspend. Now this let me affect him, Mr. Speaker. It may affect him Ron Blobalus. Now it may affect him business long this country. Plenty business stop long lay, plenty businessman stop long Mosby go come every day. Long operation, long business long all. Those of time, this controversy will stop. It may affect him. It may affect him run long all businessman go come. It may affect him run long all business. And big levy stop, Mr. Speaker. Now heavy long barrels run go come, now place barrels by operate, pilot by operate. And may big to mass long one man. And may big to mass long country. Now, Minister, you present him this bill, you come, you can appreciate him. You are probably endeavoring to solve this problem. But me like him concerned, he come to this parliament. Also, you mean to suspend him operation from Balus. You mean again? Usat man come inside long operate also. Chief Executive Officer long, this like NHC or Usat must be very considerate and must serious. Long tini blong en lopat and blong em. Long operation blow balus, you go come. Long all of the place balus in the country. Very serious, an important transportation. Long development, long country. Now, really go come, long all people, citizens of the country. Now, this is a controversy, I mean, making display, giving big play heavy. More of big play province, na me must travel go come. Almost every week, me must come to most people attend because all the government department is stop must be. All the stop lay. Now me must come here. Don't talk to one prime minister, one all minister, all departmental heads. Now me must go come. Now if you should cut down the operation, don't put him stop and me affect him. Now me like him talk saying whatever action that is taken, people must be seriously in serious consideration. Belong operation belong. Air transport, na movement block people, na development block country. I mean, very important. Also, the minister, I can see that you're trying to make sure that that problem is remedied. On that basis, I support you. But have due consideration to the point that the opposition leader is raising. We don't try to establish a precedent that will affect other boards. Right, which are established by the Act of Parliament. We don't try to come up with an amendment which will jeopardize or which will lay down the precedent for other people to use it to make amendments to the detriment of the operation of those departments. And the opposition's concern is indeed genuine. Is it indeed genuine? So, Mr. Speaker, I want to impress on the author of the bill, the minister, that whatever amendment that we endeavor to have it passed through this parliament must not serve for private interest. I'm not saying, Minister, your own interest. I'm not saying that. Make sure that that is not done that act is not used to save the interest of whoever that is trying to make a decision. No, it must be saved the interest of this country. The interest of this country is paramount. Paramount. And that is why, Minister, I hope that you have a genuine mind and genuine heart to have this matter sorted out. Because I don't want the blockades. The plane wants to take off and somebody gets a bulldozer, somebody gets an excavator and place it in the runway. This is totally unacceptable. And there is an attempt, there was an attempt. Mr. Blo, please let me add him talk. Aye, all no mania. Mr. Speaker, all no got country on level blong. Every leader must got country on level blong. We said man me play mark him all must got country on level blong all. And but it's like all operation blame me by run good, country by service law country by come up good plan. Air transport must come up good plan. Sea transport must come up good plan. Road transport by come up good plan. All man walk about go come too by good plan, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Assistant Speaker, I right to support the minister, but it must have no ulterior motives except for the interests of this country. And Mr. Speaker, Assistant Speaker, this bill must be supported without any reservation.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me opportunity long stand up or talk in support of Minister of Civil Aviation and me current display amendment the come. Long me repeal him PNG Air Services Limited, PNG New Sky Pacific Limited. Tupla company below state operate under it law Companies Act. However, this amendment he come behind him thinking law belong regulatory statutory or law belong country long give me time sanity more some law long reporting structure belong all. One of you been looking recently and the Minister for Civil Aviation he experienced him. And in this instance, Tupla company law civil aviation sector, but you may get some law state company too. Only operates sub law all not law agency law state and also our state-owned enterprises. I think our government is really looking at the reporting structure. Ultimately, these are state companies, state agencies. The place for the residual accountability comes back to the National Parliament. You may look him sometime go finish. Public Accounts Committee like scrutinize him work long Kumul Petroleum. But Kumul Petroleum to me company me no got report long. Me no got write long you scrutinize him work long me. But ML company plus state. There should be some reporting structure where whilst all maintaining workflow laws and all independent and company at almost arm's length, but ultimately this House and the government has its fiduciary responsibility to make them accountable to the people through this parliament process. So we appreciate the debacle at National Airport Corporation that exposed one weakness we've been carrying so long where Cabinet and the Minister had little control over the MD because the MD was appointed by the board. And that process needs to be tidied, so there's a responsible pathway of being accountable, ultimately to the people through this accountability conduit or pathway and hierarchy. And the Minister is not subsuming all powers back to himself. The Minister is guided by the totality of the Act that governs the way he operates and responds to the companies below him. But you may look at Mr. Amendment, he bringing back appointment process for board, he come to cabinet, and the appointment process belong managing director too, through the due process belong merit, independence of selection, but by God, this process come back to cabinet long Minister current recommendation as all sambla statutory bodies where all got statutory bodies where 3+ shortlist cabinets are deciding. In this instance, there was a slip in the current process where NAC operate under the full Companies Act process. Now, both the all, you got process la appointment belong all now. If you have someone who wants to maintain the status quo through many of the processes, then it seemed as if the government or the minister or the parliament was helpless. And this is a correction process, whilst it may be targeting the civil aviation sector in this instance, but Mila giving barely seal of parliament. Now, I'll me play as a whole of government to look this gray area where all state company and all fields of all no got accountability come to people through the parliament process. And as you like thinking, not too long ago, where Public Accounts Committee like look long walk long some state-owned enterprises, and they felt that they are totally independent from the scrutiny process. And we are reconciling this without compromising the independence of these important organizations to function, but give this added layer of scrutiny. So when there is a national issue at stake, then ultimately the government process is able to handle at different layers of authority that is dispensed with through our constitutional process and all our other subsidiary laws that govern all these bodies. So it is not directly targeting at the event, but we realized we carried a deficiency in the present law, and we're trying to fill in this gap. But me like talking Parliament, Mr. Assistant Speaker, through you, that we are also looking into this space. Along some state companies you may got, whether state companies or some National Housing Estate Limited, NHC relationship, or even all SOE companies outside process belong appointment belong board. Now appointment belong managing directors could be responsive to the process where cabinet ultimately up at the top, given the benefit of having an oversight. And Mr. Assistant Speaker, Mila Assurim country, Today we've tidied this space with all our state-owned enterprises. The process has been cleaned and cleared. Where merit-based appointment process kick in, only go through the selection process from an independent process at arm's length. The ultimately triple name come to cabinet through the minister, and then we make a pick, and then we make the appointment. But there's a direct relationship in a line of sight from cabinet down to the MD. Cabinet, minister, board, MD. That relationship, I mean, been complete long the NAC process. Even got cabinet, minister, and a board, but MD and work underneath this level. And we just want to correct this. Down the line, we'll expand the scope of investigation so that every other state company may make him display without compromising the independence of the appointment process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Apau.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. My view, Honourable Assistant Speaker, that the intentions are honourable, but the structure as per the draft amendments is not consistent with the intentions. Let me point one area. In this amendment, Section 143D, 2, which reads, the minister may at any time, by written notice, advise a director that he intends to terminate the appointment of that director on the ground, etc., etc. The minister is now given the power to terminate any director of the board. So, Honourable Assistant Speaker, I think we have a mismatch. The intention is right, but the letter of the law is not bringing that intention. We have always talked about fit and proper person's appointment on any SOE. That has been the conversation all along. But our problem has been the politicization. We talk about arm's length, but this is not arm's length. Which director in the right mind can accept the responsibility when the same minister is given the power to remove them at any time by just written notice? I have problems with this one, Mr. Assistant Speaker. And so I strongly recommend for us to relook at this. The intentions are right, but the letter of the law is not there. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Honourable Minister for Education.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. I think this land is some very important points to raise, but Mila raise triple points long. And first, Mila Luglulo, this is amendments for Minister Sikkim, 143G. This amendment you look at me put him chairman, deputy chairman. Also, Mila clarify some point, me RM deputy leader representing the regime that told some no good minister by appointing board or chairman. No, this la kind. You look him to this amendment, and so him also Prime Minister explaining president to him in no more long organized state organization that they may come to the cabinet. So that is reflected right here in this clause, law 143G. Now, long management, how about management may come up, appointment that come up, but you look him along section 143E, 1-2, and subsection A, B's, but you look him the regulatory statutory authorities act me appointed management. So here, Minister Emino Kaminsel management, also me RM Deputy Leader, talk also Minister Na Kaminsel long management level or boardroom. Definitely this amendment, support him this thing, where opposition erase him. When him opposition erase him, reflect the law, so me read him law here, law section, because me like in public look survey also misconstrued understanding. Now the point where member about erase him, Mr. Assistant Speaker, you look at minister, long all state organizations, minister is survey appoint him recommending NEC all board members. For instance, in the area that I'm responsible for, the Act allows the minister to make recommendations of people on the council. So I get the CVs of people, those that with the advice of the department, we see that they're capable people, we make recommendations to the appointment of these people. So what is reflected here in that particular clause that I think the member for Abao has raised is consistent to what is taking place in some, because ministers do appoint board members, and that is appointed authority. The third point I'd like to raise, Mr. Assistant Speaker, is the current situation. I would like to say that the management, especially the managing director and his team of management who have acted or conducted themselves in the way they have done is absolutely, I must say from this, not as I'm saying, but from the pace of all Papua New Guineans, is unacceptable, cannot be tolerated, and cannot be perpetrated and perpetuated. It must be stopped. I think the management, the MD plus the others should openly apologize, and they must resign to cleanse themselves that what they've done is a very bad thing for Papua New Guinea, in that they've detrimented the lives and security, the safety of people, and they've in fact killed some business activities because of the shutdown we have seen at the airport for 2 or 3 days. I'd like to tell them this is wrong. We should not do this. That shows truly that those people who are occupying the management positions, they have a conflict of interest. Their conduct truly shows and illustrates the fact that there probably could be people not fit and proper to occupy the position they hold, because the conduct speaks for itself. If they were selfless, if they were for Papua New Guineans, then they would not have acted the way they did. Therefore, these amendments would not have been necessary. But because they have detrimented the business, the lives, the safety and security, therefore the government, as a responsible government, must do things to take control of the situation, or else you'll see this nonsense continue to perpetuate into the future. So, Mr. Assistant Speaker, I'd like to urge opposition and the member of Abao, and I think the points raised by the governor for Morobe, that these amendments are in order, in the best interest of national interest. We should support it. It is not in the interest of a minister or of a Marape Rosa government. It is in the interest of the nation that we have experienced together. But those points can be taken. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, absent member for Hiri Koyari.
Acting Speaker, I'd like to shed some light on the views shared by my learned member for Abao, Sir Honorable Pukatemu. My views are that the analysis of Section 143, capital D, which would be the new provision of the CAA Act, I beg to differ respectfully in this instance. The discretion bestowed on the minister under subsection 2, which says the minister may. Now, may is the operative word. It is a discretion by virtue of the usage of the word may upon the minister to exercise this discretion. Of course, will be exercised sparingly to exercise a certain privilege or a right to terminate or recommend for termination. The entire provision must be read in its entirety. The subsequent provisions, subsections 3, subsections 4, subsections 5, create that avenue for natural justice to be applied to the respective director. This is a director of the board. A director then has an opportunity to, within 7 days, respond to the notice issued by the minister. If the minister is satisfied that the explanations are sufficient, then he will he still reserves the right to accept the explanation and continue the continuity. If in the event that the explanations fall short of sufficient, then he will recommend to the appointing authority to terminate that tenure, in which event a consequential event kicks in, which is the special interest group that recommends or put this director on replaces. There is no room for a vacuum. The law does not contemplate a vacuum in this instance. This also is independent of the provision for a managing director. This is not to be confused. Section 143 Cap D relates to directors of the board. The proposed Section 143E relates also independently to managing directors. In the case of managing director, the same natural justice is applied. These are principles and hallmarks of good governance and good law. With this explanation, I submit and I would urge the House to accept these amendments, considering, let's not be naive to the recent events and the continuing fiasco in this country relating to the safety of the general public in aviation. I think Papua New Guinea has a good record so far. Let's try to employ every endeavor to maintain that record and employ every endeavor to push the boundaries to make sure that our safety standards are critical and should not be gambled. We must not gamble with the lives of our ordinary Papua New Guineans and traveling public. And so this, I must commend and congratulate the Minister for Transport and Civil Aviation for taking up this expeditious reaction. It is not a knee-jerk reaction, but one that is, I submit, very well thought out, and the draftsman has reflected those intentions very, very clearly. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Question is still the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Minister. So, the question is that bill now be read at that time. Clerk.
A third reading, a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act 2000.